Out of curiosity, what do you all think is the greatest line of dialogue in a movie ever said, ever made? Anyone? Come on. I'll have whatever she's having. Harry and Sally, yes. That's pretty good. Any other? Frankly, my dear, I do not give a damn. Famous line, yeah.
A moment's courage, and it is done. Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Ooh, that's rather obscure, but I love it. A moment of courage. What's the second part? And it is done. From Bram Stoker's Dracula. Good.
My cousin Vinny, the closing argument of the defense lawyer was, what he said was bullshit.
Yes. These are all good answers. All pretty good answers. Yeah.
This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
This is the beginning of a beautiful... The last line of Casablanca. Good answers,
want a
friends.
Peanut?
What's that?
Anybody want a peanut?
Anybody want a peanut?
Life is a box of chocolates?
Oh, yes. Life is... So these are all great answers. And you're all wrong. By the way. The greatest line of dialogue in any movie ever made, or likely that will ever be made, was in the 1987 Rob Reiner film, The Princess Bride. Now, if you have never seen The Princess Bride, I'm not sure that you and I can be friends. Well, I suppose we could be kind of friend-like, but understand there'd be this sort of wall between us. It's a matter of mutual understanding, or perhaps a matter of mutual accountability, but we can discuss that later. Anyway, the line was spoken by the great Spanish swordsman Inigo Montoya. It was played by Mandy Patinkin. And we don't have time to give the whole setup, but to say that Inigo's companion, Vicini, played by Wallace Shawn, keeps stating that exactly what is happening is inconceivable. And after a half a dozen times of proclaiming inconceivable towards something that is clearly conceivable because it's happening, Inigo turns to Vicini and says, "You keep using that word. I do not think that word means what you think it means. You keep using that word. I do not think that word means what you think it means. I think I love this line so much because it points to what is perhaps my lifelong religious and theological project. That is to claim or reclaim religious language. To reclaim terms like spirit and prayer and soul and faith and love and yes, even God, from those who would have all of those things as nouns. They're not nouns. As if they were things you could possess. I have faith, which means you could lose it. Or as places you can go, or even fall into. Or as persons who have genders and agendas. Nouns, when these ideas, spirit, prayer, faith, love, God, are not nouns, they are verbs. They are movements. They are relationships. Every time I hear those words used as nouns, my inner Inigo Montoya says, you keep using that word. I do not think that word means what you think it means. Here's another great word that has been totally abused by our cultures. Heresy. Heresy. Now I'm going to do the thing here that you're really not supposed to do in a sermon. As many of you know, I'm teaching a sermon class, a preaching class, and there's a whole list of do's and don'ts. And one of the things you don't do is pull out the dictionary and say the dictionary says, but I'm going to do it anyway. I get to. So the Oxford Dictionary of English notes heresy as the following: a belief or opinion contrary to orthodox religious, especially Christian, doctrine. And in their handy little example sentences, there's the doctrine was denounced as heresy by the Pope. Okay. And Huss, I don't know who Huss is, but the sentence read, Huss was burned for heresy. Because the one thing we know about heretics is they get burned. And not a few of them, my friends, were Unitarians. By the way, including Michael Servetus, who has the lovely distinction of being burned at the stake, not once, but twice, for heresy. Which in and of itself is kind of impressive. Or inconceivable. Look it up. It's a good story. In any case, I want to reclaim this word heresy because its original meaning wasn't about being dangerously contrary necessarily, and certainly not about the potential flammability of heretics. No. The root meaning of the term in Greek had to do with choice. The Greek word is haresis, to choose. And a heretic, then, is someone who is able to choose. And somewhere along the line, someone decided that choosing something other than the doctrine, or even choosing something against the generally accepted norms, was bad. Choosing was denounced. Choosing was burned. Unsurprisingly, I object to that framing. Mostly because all our spiritual gifts, I think that being able to choose is our greatest gift, our greatest strength. For me, being a heretic, a true heretic, is one of my highest aspirations. To choose is to question the received messages against one's lived experience and embodied values. And so my second great spiritual and theological project is to make heretics out of all of you. Well, not make you heretics, because that wouldn't make sense, because you'd have to choose. But at least give you the option to choose heresy without being worried about being set aflame. So the other day I got an email with recommendations from TED Talks. TED, the Technology, Entertainment, Design, TED Talks, I'm not sure if you're familiar, I'm guessing you are, but these wonderful, about 20-minute talks on a variety of topics, right? And I get this email about once a week recommending these are the TED Talks you should watch. And in fact, the header of the email said, recommended for Gregory. And the titles of the algorithmically recommended talks were as follows: How to do laundry when you're depressed, How to harness the ancient partnership between forests and fungi, Work is not your family, How to design climate-resistant buildings, Do you really need 8 hours of sleep a night? Why having fun is the secret to a healthier life, and everything you know about hyenas is wrong. Now, I generally I love TED Talks. I think they're fascinating, and there's so much to learn. And each on their own, each of these titles offered something to assuage some curiosity of mine. But as I read that email, there was something unsettling about these recommendations as a whole, right? Something that collectively sent this message: you're doing it wrong. You're doing laundry wrong. You are not harnessing fungi in forests. You're doing work and or family wrong. You're designing your buildings wrong. You're sleeping too much or not enough. You would be healthier if you had more fun. And you are woefully ignorant about hyenas. Now, all of those individually may or may not be true. I don't know much about hyenas. I'm kind of curious now. But when taken together, the underlying message is, damn, Greg, get it together. And it occurs to me that our culture does this to us all the time. It inundates us with this message. You are doing it wrong all the time. Our culture constantly tells us that we are not enough. Whether you read or watch the news, whether you're checking your social media, watching YouTube or TikTok, or listening to advertisements, or talking to your friends, or you just went to go buy food or groceries or nails, pay attention to how many of those voices, these messages, begin with how to, implying that you require instruction on everything because you're not enough. Heck, even the stupid video screen at the gas station has been telling me I have been eating apple pie wrong my entire life. Check it out at the Liberty. You'll see what I mean. It's as if this world is trying to convince us of our inadequacy. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough stuff. You're not tall enough, or you're too tall. You're too thin. You're too fat. You don't exercise enough. You exercise too much. And in either case, you're exercising wrong. Have you caught up on all the seasons of White Lotus and Ted Lasso and Succession and the thousand other pop cultural shows now streaming? You have? You watch too much TV. Have you read all the New York Times bestsellers and all the best independent literary authors? Yes. Have you also read the 100 best novels of all time? Have you seen all the plays, listened to all the symphonies? No? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You're probably spending too much time listening to podcasts. Wait, you don't listen to podcasts? Here's a list of the 50 most essential podcasts that you must catch up on today. You should drink more coffee. You should consume less caffeine. A glass of red wine a day will stave off heart disease, but you should never drink alcohol. Are you composting? Are you composting? No? You should be. But if you are, you're probably doing it wrong. You're adding too many greens. Or wait, it's too many browns. Wait, no, you're not turning it enough. No, wait, you're turning it too often. And let's make this very clear. You are cooking chicken the wrong way. And here's the 5 ways you should cook your chicken. And by the way, you shouldn't be eating chicken. You shouldn't be eating chicken or eggs or fish. Wait, you don't eat fish? You should definitely be eating fish. But only the fish that's caught in the wild. But wait, that's not sustainable. So only eat the farmed fish. But whatever you do, do not eat the fish that they farm. Don't eat any meat. It's bad for your health and the environment. And your vegetarianism is encouraging injustice towards farm workers. I swear, friends, all of that is the last 2 weeks of emails, reading the newspapers, just living in this world. I culled all that together. Oh, by the way, speaking of injustice, I'm a UU minister. I get a lot of justice-related emails. Here's the incomplete list of justice and social issues that I am inadequately engaged in. And this was culled from my email in the last 4 days. I am not doing enough In the areas of climate justice, racial justice, reproductive justice, justice for Ukraine, justice for Puerto Ricans, justice for Nicaraguans, food justice, education justice, I'm also not doing enough to support gun violence prevention, suicide prevention, or the homeless, or veterans, or those struggling with addictions. That's just in the last week. Jeez, Greg. Come on. Our whole lives were deluged with these messages that seem reasonable on their surface, reasonable, even desirable on their surface, but when they're taken collectively, they reinforce this grounding anxiety that you are not enough. And so we strive. Even if we reject the message, we strive to meet the standard, right? To clear the bar, to get to the end of this life having done it right. Although we're never actually clear on who's making that standard, who's setting the bar, right? For some of us, we're still trying to meet our families' ideals and expectations of us. Or perhaps it's our friends. Or maybe it's our profession's expectations, our partner's standards, our religious community's standards. But whomever or whatever is establishing the standard, the ideal, the way you should be in this world, it probably isn't you. It isn't me. It isn't our heart. It isn't our soul, our embodiment of the divine. The standard makers, the message senders are all out there. And more often than not, are shouting down our own wisdom. And so we work, we strive, we do our best. We toil and strain for that moment when we have done enough, when we have bought enough, when we have learned enough, when we have given enough, when we have grown enough, when we have loved enough to be lovable. When we have loved enough to finally be lovable. We yearn for that moment when the world will tell us, at long last, when we are good enough. And that day never comes. For most of us, at least. Because we're looking outside ourselves for that long-desired validation that we are finally doing this right, and therefore, we can now be loved. So, friends, this is where I invite you to become a heretic. To question these messages of inadequacy that you are inundated with, to question their source, to question the intent, and to mostly question the impact they have on your soul. And then I invite you to sit, or stand, or lie down. You choose the posture. But sit and listen to your own heart, your own wisdom. I invite you into this act of heresy to love yourself first, all of yourself, the miracle of your life. And to know, to really know that you are enough. I am enough. And I invite you into this act of heresy to love yourself as an action, not love like a noun, love as a verb, a way of being in this life, a relationship to yourself that is grounded in the simple elemental truth that only you can tell yourself, only you can know for yourself. You are enough. I am enough. We are enough. You were born enough, and you will die enough. And then, when you know your being as enough, choose. Choose who you are, who you know yourself to be, a child of love, a child that is whole, complete, and enough. There are 8 billion voices in this world trying to convince you of the doctrine that you are not enough. Interestingly, all those voices seem to have a process, a technology, or a product that will make you enough. On sale now, limited time only. 8 billion voices that are all too happy to tell you who and what you should be, but the only voice that can tell you that is the one that resides within you and you alone. So choose your life. Choose your love. Choose your enoughness. For all at once, when you make this choice all at once in the world where no one was quite like you, the world opens up itself a little wider to make some space for you. And this is the day you begin. This is the day you begin to find the places inside your laughter and your lunches and your books and your travel and your stories where every new friend has something a little like you and something else so fabulously not quite like you at all. And it is enough. Amen, my friends. And I love you. And may we live in blessing.